This is how you can win in 9 moves. d4, d5, c4. Black sacrifices the pawn by playing e5. This is the beginning of Albin counter gambit. D into e5, d4, e3, bishop b4 check, bishop d2, and now white sacrifices the bishop by playing d into e3. White should play f into e3, but more than 1 lakh players have fallen into Lasker chess trap by accepting the bishop sacrifice. Black should play e into f2 check. If white plays king into f2, black can win the queen by playing queen into d1. So white will play king e2, f into g1 knight check, rook into g1, and now black can gain the winning position by playing bishop g4 checks keeper, king f2, bishop into d1. This is how you can checkmate your opponent in just 8 moves. e4, c6, d4, d5. This is Caro-Kann defense. Knight c3 is the main line. But for this trap, white will play bishop d3. Black should play d into e4. But if he plays knight f6, white should play e5, knight fd7. And now white sacrifices the pawn by playing e6. More than 1600 players in online chess games made a mistake of playing f into e6. Queen h5 check, g6. And now white sacrifices the queen by playing queen into g6 check, h into g6. Bishop into g6, checkmate. This is how you can checkmate your opponent in just 9 moves. d4, d5, e4, d into e4. This is Blackmar-Dimar gambit. Knight c3. Black develops the piece and attacks the d4 pawn by playing knight c6, d5, knight e5, queen d4, knight g6. White develops the bishop by playing bishop b5 check. Black should play bishop d7. If he blocks the check by playing pawn c6, white will sacrifice the queen by playing d into c6, queen into d4, c into b7 discovered check, bishop d7, and now white can win the game by playing b into a8 queen, checkmate. This is how you can checkmate your opponent in just 6 moves. e4, c6, d4, d5. This is Caro-Kann. Knight c3, d into e4, knight into e4. Black plays knight d7, the Smyslov variation of Caro-Kann. Knight f3 is the main line, but here white plays the tricky move, queen e2. More than 22,000 players in online chess games made a mistake of playing knight gf6. And here white can win the game by playing knight d6, checkmate. This is how you can win in 8 moves. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c into d4, knight into d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6. This is Sicilian dragon. Bishop e3. Here black should play bishop g7. But here more than 18,000 players in online chess games made a mistake of playing knight g4. White will play bishop b5 check, bishop d7. Now you can see that the black's bishop on d7 is under an absolute pin by bishop on b5. Now white can win the piece and gain the winning position by playing queen into g4. This is how you can win your opponent's queen in just 8 moves. d4, knight f6, c4, e5. This is Budapest gambit. d into e5, knight g4, knight f3, d6. Black sacrifices the pawn for development, e into d6, bishop into d6. And here more than 43,000 players in online games made a mistake of playing pawn h3. Now black sacrifices the knight by playing knight into f2. You can see that black's knight is giving fork to white's queen and rook. King into f2. Black gives a stunning bishop sacrifice to gain the winning position by playing bishop g3 check. King into g3, queen into d1. Insane chess trick to checkmate your opponent in just 7 moves. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. Black sets up the trap by playing knight d4. White should play knight into d4, but more than 2 million players in online chess games has made a mistake of playing knight into e5. Black will play queen g5 attacking the knight and pawn, knight into f7 forking the queen and rook, queen into g2. White will save the rook by playing rook f1. Black will capture white's pawn by playing queen into e4 check, bishop e2, and now black can win the game by playing knight f3, checkmate. More than 360,000 players have fallen into this chess trap. e4, c6, d4, d5, e5. Black develops the bishop by playing bishop f5, h4, This is Caro-Kann advance, Mikhail-Tal variation. If black plays e6, he has completely fallen into white's chess trap. White will play g4 to attack the bishop. Bishop e4, f3. Black is forced to play bishop g6. Now white can trap the bishop and gain the winning position by playing h5. This is how you can win a chess game in 8 moves. d4, e5, the England gambit. D into e5. Black develops the piece and attacks the pawn by playing knight c6, knight f3, queen e7, which increases the attack on e5 pawn, bishop f4, queen b4 check. It's a triple attack. White saves the bishop and blocks the check by playing bishop d2, queen into b2. Now you can see that the black's queen is attacking white's rook. White should play knight c3, but more than 5,70,000 players made a mistake of playing bishop c3. Black pins the bishop by playing bishop b4, queen d2, bishop into c3, queen into c3, and now black can win the game by playing queen c1, checkmate. More than 60,000 players have fallen for this chess trap. d4, d5, c4. This is queen's gambit. Black declines the gambit by playing e6, knight c3, knight f6. White pins black's knight by playing bishop g5, knight b d7, c into d5, e into d5. Now as the f6 knight is under a relative pin, if white thinks that he can win black's d5 pawn by playing knight into d5, this would be his biggest mistake. Now white has already fallen into black's chess trap. Black sacrifices the queen by playing knight into d5, bishop into d8, bishop b4 check. White is forced to play queen d2, bishop into d2 check, king into d2, and now black can win the piece by playing king into d8. Like and subscribe to learn more.